For centuries, humankind believed itself to be the master of the earth. Cities towered into the skies, ships crossed oceans in hours, and technology reached into the stars. But in the 25th century, nature rose against its restless children. It began with the oceans. Ice caps melted, and entire coastlines drowned beneath rising tides. Coastal megacities, New York, Mumbai, Shanghai, vanished into the sea, leaving millions displaced. Humanity fought back with barriers, floating districts, and desalination plants. But the struggle was endless. Then, the Earth's crust itself awakened. Volcanoes erupted with terrifying force, throwing ash into the atmosphere. Crops withered, winters grew harsher, sunlight dimmed. The planet slipped into a volcanic chill as though nature had turned off its warmth. And finally, came the sun. In 2046-20, a solar hyperflare burst across space and struck Earth. Power grids collapsed in minutes. Satellites melted. The digital archives of centuries blinked out in a heartbeat. Humanity's knowledge, its science, its libraries, everything became silent fragments. Civilization unraveled quickly. Governments failed. Wars erupted over water and food, and billions died. Within decades, only scattered bands of survivors remained. Once they had conquered space, now they returned to caves and ruins. Yet even in despair, the human spirit flickered. People still dreamed of light. Year was 2475. Humanity's billions had fallen to scattered thousands. The once glittering cities were only skeletons, choked with vines and dust. Survivors lived in mountain caves, abandoned tunnels, and broken shelters, clinging to life like embers in ash. On one gray dawn in a settlement among northern ruins, smoke rose from small fires. Families stirred from their patched tents, coughing against the bitter air. Children gnawed on dried roots while hunters returned with meager catches. The world was quiet except for the wind. Too quiet, for no birds sang anymore. Among them was Elias, an old man who had once been a historian. To the children he was a treasure, not for his strength but for his stories. He told them of blue skies, flowing rivers, and towers that touched the clouds. The children listened with wide eyes, unable to imagine such wonders. A boy asked, "Will the world ever be like that again?" Elias paused, looking at the pale sun beyond the smoke, and gave no answer. Kaela, the settlement's leader, lived in the present. She organized hunts, rationed food, and patched shelters. Dreams she thought would not feed her people. Yet even she, hardened by survival, sometimes stood at night, staring at the sky, whispering to the stars. The ruins around them whispered too. Rusting machines, shattered solar panels, broken drones, all relics of a forgotten age. Children played with metal scraps, unaware that their toys had once held great power. Still, life persisted. New babies were born. Songs echoed softly beside fires. Humanity had not died. It waited. And on that morning, though they did not know it, their waiting was nearly over. High above, past the storm clouds, a light moved against the stars. It was no falling rock. It was something greater, something coming for them. Night fell heavy across the ruined earth. The sky was dark, but for once, the ash had thinned enough for stars to be seen. Survivors in Kaela's settlement huddled close to their fires, telling stories and guarding against the cold winds. Few noticed at first when a new light appeared above the horizon, steady, brighter than any star. At first they thought it a comet or falling rock, but unlike meteors, the light did not streak across the sky. It slowed, hovered, and descended with deliberate grace. The ground trembled faintly. Some children gasped in awe. Others hid their faces in fear. Kaela rose to her feet, spear in hand, her instincts warning of danger. The light grew until it became a vast shape, cutting through the clouds. A ship, unlike anything the survivors had ever seen, drifted down in silence. Its surface shimmered like liquid crystal, reflecting the faint glow of firelight below. It landed beyond the ridge, casting the ruins in ghostly illumination. Panic erupted. Some villagers ran toward the caves, others clutched their children. "It's a trick," an old hunter growled. "The sky has betrayed us again." Kaela tried to calm them, though her heart raced as fast as theirs. Only Elias, leaning on his staff, whispered, "No, not the sky. The stars. They have come." Moments later, the ship opened. A soft hum filled the air, like the vibration of deep music. From the glowing doorway stepped figures, tall, elegant, and unlike anything human. Their bodies seemed woven from translucent crystal and flowing light, as if their veins carried starlight itself. Their eyes shone with calm brilliance, reflecting galaxies within them. The villagers froze. Silence stretched between species. Then one of the beings raised its hand, palm glowing softly, not as a weapon, but as a gesture of peace. Its voice resonated directly in their minds, smooth and layered like music. "Do not fear. We are the Ky'rons. We have come to help." Some gasped aloud, hearing thoughts not their own echo in their heads. A child began to cry. Kaela tightened her grip on the spear, but forced herself to step forward. "Why would you come here?" she demanded, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. "What do you want from us?" The being tilted its head, its crystalline form refracting the firelight. "We want nothing. Long ago, we too faced destruction. Our worlds burned, our oceans boiled, our people fell. We survived only because others helped us. Now we do the same." The words rippled through the crowd. Some shook their heads in disbelief. "Lies," muttered the old hunter. "Aliens don't come to save, they come to conquer." Others whispered prayers, believing these were divine messengers. Elias stepped forward, his weathered face lit with tears. "You speak of survival, of rising again. If your words are true, then perhaps you are the answer the stars promised us." The Ky'rons lowered their hands, and one extended a small sphere of light. It hovered between them, glowing softly. "Your world still breathes, though wounded, but your people cannot heal it alone. Accept our guidance, and you will see life grow again." Kaela's eyes burned with suspicion, yet behind her she saw her people, thin, tired, and afraid. She exhaled slowly and lowered her spear. "If you mean us no harm, then show us." At her words, the Ky'rons stepped closer, their crystalline forms glowing brighter. The sphere drifted outward, spreading warmth into the cold night. Where it touched the barren soil, small green shoots broke through. Living plants, glowing faintly in the dark. Gasps echoed. For the first time in decades, something grew in the poisoned earth. Hope and fear clashed in every heart. Was this miracle or another trap? None could say. But in that moment, beneath the ruined sky, humanity looked at the strangers from the stars and saw not just danger, but the possibility of the future. Did not sleep that night. Some huddled in fear, others whispered in awe, and children stared wide-eyed at the glowing strangers who had descended from the stars. The Ky'rons did not force themselves into the camp. Instead, they sat quietly near the fires, their crystalline bodies casting shifting patterns of light across the ruins. By morning, Kaela gathered the people. She stood tall, though exhaustion lined her face. "We cannot ignore them," she said, "but neither can we trust them blindly." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elias leaned heavily on his staff and spoke with rare conviction. "I have studied the fall of our world. I have seen what we lost. If these beings speak truth, then perhaps they carry the wisdom to rebuild." The Ky'rons rose, as though hearing every word. Their leader, a figure whose chest glowed with a deeper blue light, stepped forward. "We do not seek to rule you," it said, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "We come with gifts, tools to plant, to grow, to heal." From within their ship, they brought three a crystalline seed case, shimmering with inner light. When they touched it to the ground, it unfolded into hundreds of smaller pods, each glowing faintly. Place these in your soil, the Ky'ron explained. They will adapt, purify, and give life even in poisoned earth. The second was a set of energy cores, small spheres no larger than a fist. When set upon the ground, they glowed warmly, radiating heat and light without smoke, fire, or fuel. For the weary survivors who had lived in darkness and cold, this was a miracle. The third was a cluster of knowledge crystals, clear and faceted like ice. When Elias touched one, visions filled his mind. Books, diagrams, voices from the old world and beyond. Entire histories of medicine, engineering, and art flickered through his thoughts. He staggered back, tears streaming. This is memory itself, he whispered. The crowd gasped at each demonstration. Some reached out in wonder, others recoiled in suspicion. Beware, gifts that come too easily, the hunter muttered. Power always has a price. Kaela studied the aliens closely. Her instincts screamed caution. Yet she saw her people's eyes hollow with hunger, desperate for hope. She finally asked, "Why help us? Why now when we are weakest?" The Ky'ron leader's gaze glimmered. Because we know what it is to fall. Long ago, our own home burned beneath storms of fire. We survived only because another race planted a seed for us. That seed became our future. Now it is our turn to plant yours. Silence fell heavy. Elias broke it with a
Perhaps
trembling
this is not
voice.
the end of mankind, but the beginning.
That day, the survivors planted the first crystalline pods in the barren soil outside their camp. Within hours, green shoots emerged. Real plants, alive and thriving. Children laughed, tugging at the glowing leaves. Mothers wept to see food sprouting from a land that had been dead for decades. At night, the camp gathered around the energy cores, basking in warmth that did not choke them with smoke. Songs rose again, weak at first, but growing stronger. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through the ruins. Still, not all hearts trusted. The hunter sharpened his spear and muttered, "No one gives such gifts for nothing. They will want something in return." Kaela did not disagree, though she kept her doubts hidden. For now, she chose to act on hope. The Ky'rons watched quietly, their crystal forms glowing brighter as they observed the humans rejoice. "The seed is planted," their leader murmured, though whether to its people or to the stars above, none could tell. And so, on the edge of a dying world, a fragile alliance began. Humanity, broken and starving, had taken the first step toward rebirth, guided by strangers from the stars, who promised that life could bloom again. Weeks passed after the arrival of the Ky'rons, and life in Kaela's settlement began to change. Where once there had been only dust and ruin, green patches now spread across the earth. Crops sprouted from the crystalline seed pods, their glowing leaves feeding on poisoned soil and transforming it into fertile ground. Children who had grown up knowing only hunger now ran with full bellies. The air no longer reeked of smoke, for the alien energy cores lit their nights with clean, endless warmth. For the first time in decades, hope returned. But hope, fragile as it was, also grew larger as nearby survivors wandered in, drawn by rumors of strange beings who made dead land fertile. Some came in peace, desperate for food. Others came with suspicion, demanding answers. "What is their price?" one ragged wanderer spat. "No one gives without taking. You'll see these crystal ghosts will make you slaves." Inside the camp, voices rose as well. The old hunter, grim and watchful, grew louder in his distrust. "Look how quickly we depend on them," he warned. "We eat from their seeds, we warm ourselves at their fire. What happens when they decide to take it away?" Others nodded, their fear twisting into anger. Kaela found herself at the center of every argument. Each day she heard both sides. Elias, who believed the Ky'rons were a blessing, and the hunter who saw them as a trap. She herself carried doubts. She never spoke aloud. At night she watched the crystal beings who seemed so calm and patient, and wondered, why did they help? The Ky'rons, for their part, never forced anything. They offered tools, guidance, and knowledge, but never commands. Still, their very presence unsettled some. When they taught Elias how to use the knowledge crystals, visions of science and history filled his mind. Images of starships, medicines, and great cities reborn. He wept openly,
This is
declaring
the key.
to our future. Yet others muttered, a key can also lock a door. One evening, tension reached breaking point. A group of newcomers, gaunt and desperate, demanded more food than the settlement could spare. When Kaela refused, they shouted that the Ky'rons must be hiding more. The hunter stepped forward, his spear raised. See, already, strangers come to take what is ours. This is the danger of leaning on alien gifts. Before violence could erupt, the Ky'ron leader raised its hand. A pulse of gentle light spread across the camp, calming fear and anger alike. We did not come to divide you, it said softly. But only you can choose whether to stand together or fall apart. Its words lingered. That night, Kaela sat with Elias by the fire. Do you trust them? She asked. Elias looked into the flames. I trust what I see. Plants growing, children smiling. Knowledge returned. If they meant us harm, they could have destroyed us already. Instead, they plant seeds. That is enough for me. Kaela nodded slowly, though her doubts remained. She knew survival was not just about food and warmth. It was about unity. If her people could not overcome their fear, no gift, however miraculous, would save them. The next day, she called the settlement together. Standing before both humans and Ky'rons, she spoke firmly. We are broken people. Alone we will not survive. But together, if we learn, if we trust carefully, we can rise again. These gifts are not chains, unless we make them is ours. Her words silenced the crowd. Slowly, people nodded. Even the hunter lowered his spear, though his eyes remained wary. That evening, for the first time in years, a celebration stirred. Music, rough and simple, made from bone flutes and hollow drums, rose into the night. Humans and Ky'rons alike stood beneath the stars. Children laughed around the glowing crops, and mothers sang lullabies without fear. Hope had not erased doubt, but it had begun to outweigh it. And far above, the stars watched as humanity stood at the fragile threshold of rebirth. Its greatest struggle, no longer with nature, but with itself. The first true dawn of the new age came silently, almost without notice. The storms that had once painted the horizon with lightning and ash had faded. For the first time in living memory, the rising sun touched fields of green, rather than wastelands of gray. To many it felt like a dream. They might wake from it any moment. Kaela walked through the growing fields at sunrise, her boots brushing against glowing stalks that swayed with the wind. She ran her fingers along the strange crystalline leaves which shimmered with dew. These plants, born from Ky'ron seeds, had already healed soil thought to be forever dead. Birds had begun to return their calls, filling the air with sound no human child had ever heard before. The world was changing, piece by fragile piece. But rebuilding a civilization was more than crops and clean air. Kaela knew this as well as anyone. She gathered with Elias, the hunter, and the Ky'ron leader inside the council tent. The air hummed faintly with the crystal devices the aliens had given them. Machines that recorded, stored, and shared knowledge. On the table between them lay one of the glowing shards. Elias had studied, filled with visions of old technologies and lost histories. Elias's voice trembled with excitement as he spoke. We can build again, not just huts and fields, but cities, medicine, tools of peace. We don't have to crawl in the ashes anymore. His eyes burned with hope. But Kaela saw the shadow of worry on the hunter's face. And weapons. If this knowledge holds all that humans once made, then it holds the same tools that destroyed us. Will we walk the same path again? Will we forget the lessons of the Earth's wrath? Silence fell. Even the Ky'ron leader did not immediately answer. At last its voice came soft as flowing water. Knowledge is neither gift nor curse. It is a mirror. What you see within it depends on who you are. Kaela felt the truth of those words. Humanity had been humbled, broken by natural fury, quakes, fires, and storms that no weapon had caused. Their downfall had not come from war, but from arrogance, from believing the world could never cast them down. If they forgot that humility, she knew they would fall again. Days turned into weeks as the settlement expanded. More survivors arrived, drawn by rumors of fertile soil and healing air. Small villages became a growing town. Children learned not only to plant and harvest, but to read the crystal tablets where the Ky'rons stored both human and alien knowledge. Fireside tales of despair gave way to lessons of rebuilding. Still, challenges remained. Not all who arrived sought peace. Some bands of wanderers, hardened by years of scarcity, tried to seize food by force. Skirmishes broke out on the edges of the settlement. Yet Kaela noticed something remarkable. Where once her people would have scattered in fear, now they stood together. Farmers, hunters, and even children defended their fragile home. And each time the Ky'rons stood with them, never leading, only supporting, like guardians who believed the humans must learn to protect themselves. One night, as Kaela looked up at the stars, Elias joined her. "Do you ever wonder why they chose us?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "Maybe they saw something worth saving." Elias chuckled. "Or maybe they just believed we deserved a second chance." "Either way," Kaela said, her voice firm, "the Ky'rons never asked for worship nor obedience. Instead, they guided the humans in forming their own councils, their own decisions. Slowly, trust grew, not the blind trust of dependence, but the cautious trust of partners walking the same road. And so, little by little, the seeds of a new civilization took root. It was not a return to the old world, but the birth of something different, something tempered by loss and strengthened by unity. Years later, Kaela would remember that first dawn, the day when the fields glowed and the air rang with birdsong. She would remember how fragile it all felt, and how precious. Humanity had nearly vanished, swallowed by fire and storm, but it had risen again, not alone, but with the help of beings who had seen countless worlds fall and rise. The story of Earth was not one of endings, but of renewal. The scars of disaster would never fade, but they had become reminders. Humanity had learned to stand again, not above the world, but as part of it. And as the sun rose higher, painting the horizon gold, Kaela whispered a vow that echoed across her people. "We will not waste this dawn. We will build, we will remember, and we will honor the gift of life. This time, we rise together." And thus began the true rebirth of humankind, watched over by the stars and by the silent, patient eyes of their alien allies.